Those of you who study martial arts, it's a kind of divine jujitsu. In jujitsu, you're not actually attacking your opponent. What you do is you allow the opponent to attack you, and then you use that energy that they bring to rework it into the result that you want. Look what the adversary meant for assault, God used for ascension. It was the same energy, but a different effort. He reworked it to a brand new end because God is the master weaver. Um, Watch this. And until the madness of deprivation gives way to the triumph of elevation. If God could redeem the life of Joseph, then I came by to tell you God can redeem ours as well. We are going to get through this. I know you may fear that you won't, and that's a natural and normal because we all do. We fear that depression is never going to lift, that the yelling will never cease, that the pain will never leave. But down in the pit, you are surrounded by steep walls and angry adversaries. We wonder, will my gray skies ever turn blue? Is there a bright side anywhere? In the pit, you feel trapped and stuck, locked in and predestined for failure because there are no easy exits out. But just because there are no easy exits out does not mean that there are no exits at all. Deliverance is to the Bible what jazz is to Mardi Gras. It's brass and it's everywhere. Daniel walked out of the lion's den. Peter walked out of the prison. Jonah walked out of the belly of the great fish. David walked out of the valley of the shadow of death. The disciples walked out of the storm. Lazarus walked out of the grave. Paul walked out of the shackles, and Jesus walked out of the tomb. We serve a God who gets us out of stuff and gets us through stuff, that God gets us through the Red Sea onto dry ground, that God gets us through the wilderness to the promised land, that God gets us through the valley of the shadow of death, that God gets us through the trials and through the tragedy and through the turmoil and through the trouble. In fact, through is one of the Bible's favorite words, that God will bring us through. We are going to get through this. We are not in here to stay. This is not where I belong, but because the Lord is on my side, I'm going to give you through this. Let me give you a scripture. It's one of my favorites, and I want to suggest it to that you add it to your repertoire. Isaiah 43:2, God said, when you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. When you pass through the rivers, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire, it will not burn you, nor will the flames scorch you. It's not going to be painless, and somebody here knows what I'm talking about because you've shed many tears. You've taken chemo and radiation. You've suffered betrayal and setbacks. It's not going to be painless, but you are going to get through this. It's not going to be painless. It's not going to be quick. Joseph was 17 when his brothers abandoned him. He was at least 37 when he saw them again. Sometimes God takes his time. 120 years to prepare Noah for the flood, 80 years to prepare Moses for his work, 16 years to get David from the pasture to the palace, 3 years to get Paul to come out of Arabia and get onto the mission field, 30 years to get Jesus to build anything other than a kitchen table and chair. God often takes his time because God's history is in redemption, not in minutes, but in lifetimes. God redeems folk, not in minutes, but in lifetime. God will use this mess for your good. It's not in vain. It's not for nothing. God is going to get us out of this. Romans 8 says, for we know that all things works together for our good to those who love the Lord and who are the called according to our purpose. Not that all things are good, but the passage says that God works all things together for our good.